Today I'm going to show you how to make an epic apples and cinnamon breakfast that tastes like dessert with overnight oats. Check this out. So to make this recipe, today I am using old-fashioned oats. Old-fashioned oats are just the flaky oats. They're not instant, they're not quick cooking. They have the large flakes. The reason you want to use old-fashioned or rolled oats for overnight oats is because when you use the instant, like the quick cooking oats, they're already chopped up really fine. So in the morning when you go eat it, you basically have like mush because the oats are already very broken down. So make sure that you use old-fashioned or rolled oats. Or you can also use steel cut oats. The ratio is gonna be a little bit different, but I'm gonna have links right below this video with all the details on the recipe. So let's get started. The first thing I'm gonna do is chop up an apple. I'm using a Granny Smith green apple today because I really like that tanginess of the apples and cinnamon, just like you'd use on apple pie. So essentially that's kind of what we're doing, apple pie with your oats. Now you do want to chop these up into smaller pieces because when you spoon them out of your jar, you want to have edible apple pieces, not big slices. Plus, in just like 3 minutes or so, we're going to cook them down in our pan with a little bit of like cinnamon and butter and a little bit of maple syrup. It's gonna be delicious. And because we're cooking down our apples in the morning, you're not going to find that your apples have browned. Their little brown spots are gonna be speckles of cinnamon, but not browned apples. So you don't have to worry about that. So now that our apples are cut into small pieces, I'm going to turn on my stove and just take a little bit of butter and melt it in my pan. About a tablespoon or so. If you want to keep this recipe dairy-free, you could use coconut oil as a substitute, but you definitely want to use some type of fat or butter or oil to cook down the apples and cinnamon so they soften up and they're not super crunchy in your oat jar. All right, so we simply take our apples and put them in our pan. And I guess you could make this with any type of apple that you have around. The crisper, the juicier, the better. I'm gonna add some cinnamon and some vanilla. Honestly, I don't see why you couldn't just take these cooked apples and serve them over yogurt as well. It's just super delish. All right, so while these are cooking down, I'm going to start filling my jars. Now I have 4 8-ounce jars here, but don't fret. You can also make this recipe in a bigger glass container and just put everything in here and in the morning serve it out. So whether either in individual jars or in one big container will work. So I'm gonna fill our jars with our oats. There's always spillage here. I'm also going to add a little bit of flax meal to my oat jars. Not a lot, but just enough to help everything thicken up. Flax also adds omega-3s. And I actually have an entire video on this channel dedicated to how to make really great overnight oats. It's really a basic recipe process, but I tell you how much to add of flax or chia seeds or hemp seeds, you know, all the other things that kind of gonna add more nutrition to any overnight oats recipe. Let's give these a stir. And the apples are gonna start to kind of get sticky and break down, just like when you're making an apple pie and the inside it's all gooey. That's kind of what's happening here, except we don't add a lot of sugar to this recipe at all, just a little bit at the very end of maple syrup or honey, whatever you prefer. So let's give these a little bit of a shake. I'm filling my jars with unsweetened almond milk. I use almond milk in my overnight oats. Sometimes I use dairy milk. You can use whatever you prefer and you typically use at home. All right guys, so these apples are ready. The final step is to turn off your fire. Grab a little bit of maple syrup or honey and drizzle it over the top. That is gonna cook down really nicely with the apples, form what seems like the inside of an apple pie. I really can't wait for you guys to make this recipe and tell me what you think, because it's just like the smells here are so, so good. These are ready. So I'm just going to spoon in about 1/4 of the mixture inside of each jar. So I just do 1 spoon per jar and come back with the rest. Biting into these cinnamon apples is my favorite part in the morning. And then with your spoon, you're going to mix the oats and the apples so every bite tastes just as good. If you leave them at the top, you're gonna eat those apples first and you'll have plain oats at the bottom. Could, of course, use a smaller spoon than I'm using. Then we're simply going to place the lids on our jars, and we're going to refrigerate these overnight. The thing about overnight oats is that they do take 6 to 8 hours to absorb all the liquid, get rich, thick, creamy, super delicious, and that's why they're called overnight. You fill your jars, and in the morning, they're ready. So once sealed, we're just going to refrigerate these, and they're ready for tomorrow. In the morning, you have this amazing jar of a done-for-you breakfast. So let's check these apples and cinnamon oats out. The oats have absorbed all the liquid. They're soft. It tastes like the inside of an apple pie, but much healthier. If you're into overnight oats, I'm gonna make sure to link my favorites right below this video. I've got a ton of them on this channel and on my websites. And while you're down there, like this video and hit that red subscribe button. You and I get to cook new recipes every week. See you next time.